Chapter 7: Diversity in Living Organisms. Biodiversity. We observe different types of living organisms in our surroundings. There are microorganisms as well as gigantic blue whale. Let us think about some interesting facts related to life on Earth. Plants differ from each other in their structure and size. For example, the grapevine is a climber. Coconut is an unbranched tree. Tulsi is a medicinal plant which is herbaceous, and lotus is an aquatic plant. There are many variations observed in these plants. They occur in different habitats. Similarly, if we observe the animals in our vicinity, they also differ from each other. They differ in their body structure, eating habits, mode of locomotion, their shelters, and habitats. We observe rats and earthworms which make burrows, whereas the birds make their nests on the trees. Cattle are herbivorous, whereas wild cats are carnivorous. On the basis of our observation, we conclude that there is a great variety in plants and animals in our surroundings. Let us compare the students in a class. We can find that they differ in their appearance, height, physique, etc. If we add a monkey to the comparison list, we can find that the students have many features in common than the monkey. Let us also add a cow to the list. Now we can see that the monkey have more common features than the cow. If we compare Desi cows and Jersey cows, we can find that the Desi cows have hump over the shoulders, large ears, and loose skin. But the Jersey cows do not share the same physical characteristics. Jersey cows are very refined, with a trim and fine head and neck, making them look very feminine. The Deshi cows also differ from each other in their appearance. We can identify a Jersey cow from a crowd of Deshi cows, as the Jersey cow have certain features different from the Desi cows. Thus, in forming a category, we decide the important characteristics and ignore the trivial ones. If we consider the size of organisms around us, we have the microscopic bacteria, which is of only a few micrometer, while the average size of blue whale is 30 meters and that of a redwood tree is about 100 meters. The lifespan of organisms also differ from each other. For instance, pine trees live up to thousands of years, while insects like mosquitoes live only for a few days. We can also see colorless or transparent worms, as well as bright-colored birds and flowers around us. The life on Earth is quite vivid. That is, we get variety of living organisms. Every living organism appears to be different from the others in various aspects, especially their appearance and mode of life. Every living organism maintains its own identity, that is, uniqueness. The entire phenomenon is known as biodiversity or biological diversity. The variety that we see in the living things that exist on Earth is called biodiversity. Biodiversity means the diversity of life forms.
Biodiversity is important for the survival of all living beings. Every living organism depends on other organisms for their basic necessity, food. All living creatures are supported by the interactions among organisms and their immediate environment. A biologically diverse natural environment provides humans with the necessities of life and forms the basis for the economy. Man has been indiscriminately using these natural resources. The result of this is that there is a decline in the biodiversity.
Biodiversity is also affected by particular characteristics of land, water, climate, etc. It is estimated that there are about 10 million species on the planet. Of this, we actually know only 1 or 2 millions of them. The warm and humid tropical regions of the Earth between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn are rich in diversity of plant and animal life. This is called the region of megadiversity. Of the biodiversity of the planet, more than half is concentrated in a few countries like Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Mexico, Zaire, Madagascar, Australia, China, India, Indonesia, and Malaysia. Classification. The life around us evolved over a million of years. Studying all these different forms was a big task in front of the earlier biologists. It was difficult to study such diverse forms. Greek philosopher Aristotle classified animals as aquatic, aerial, and terrestrial on the basis of their habitat. But this has been considered a simpler classification as the organisms living in the same habitat also show wide differences in their characteristics. As we observe various life forms in nature, there is a need for organization of these forms. The grouping of living things is necessarily based on the similarity. For example, aquatic plants and aquatic animals. Then, differences among the living things are identified. For example, varieties of mango and breeds of dogs. The process of identifying differences among the living things and placing them into groups that have significantly similar characteristics is called biological classification or taxonomy. To make groups, we have to study different forms. For making a relevant group, there is a need to decide which characteristic feature is of fundamental importance and is helpful in deciding difference amongst life forms. This helps in creating main broad groups, for example, plant or animals. Within the broad groups, smaller subgroups will be decided with the less important characters. For example, flowering or non-flowering plant. This arrangement is called as hierarchy of characteristics. We observe many animals, some of them are crawling on land and some are swimming in the water bodies, that is snakes and fishes. The external characters or morphological characters are of great help in deciding the groups. We decide the broad groups as reptiles and fishes. Further, if we consider snakes, they can be either poisonous or non-poisonous. Otherwise, land snakes or water snakes or sea snakes. Thus, within the broad groups, we narrow down or separate the smaller groups. What is the basis of classification? Organisms are classified on the basis of certain characteristics. Characteristic refers to the particular form or particular function. Human beings having 5 fingers on each hand is a characteristic. Similarly, Locomotion in animals is a characteristic which differs them from plants which are stationary. Let us understand how certain characteristics are chosen as more fundamental than others while classifying organisms. Consider the example of a stone wall. The stones used will be of different shapes and sizes. We can see that the shapes and sizes of stones in the lowermost layer decided the shape and size of the layer on top of it, while the stones at the top of the wall do not influence the choice of the stones that come below them. Thus, in the classification of living organisms, the stones in the lowermost layer are like the characteristics that decide the broadest divisions among the organisms. The characteristics of broadest divisions are independent of any other characteristics in succeeding level. The characteristics in the next level would be dependent on the previous one and would decide the variety in the next level. In this way, we can build up a whole hierarchy of mutually related characteristics to be used for classification. For classification of the living organisms, the place where they live, that is, their habitat, can be one such criterion on the basis of which they can be classified. The other criteria can be the kind of cells they are made up of. You know that the cell is a basic structural and functional unit of all living organisms. The cellular characteristic can be considered as the most basic characteristic since all living organisms are made up of cells. Some of them are unicellular, example, amoeba, diatoms, and others are multicellular, especially higher organisms, example, hydra, fern, spirogyra, etc. Living organisms are classified based on the structure of cells as prokaryotic or eukaryotic. Eukaryotic cells possess a well-defined nucleus which has a prominent nuclear membrane, nucleolus and nucleoplasm. Eukaryotic cells are present in higher advanced unicellular forms as well as multicellular plants and animals. Eukaryotic organisms have a prominent nucleus and membrane-bound organelles in their cells that carry out cellular processes efficiently in isolation from each other. But in a prokaryotic cell, a clearly demarcated nucleus and other organelles are absent. Thus, the biochemical pathways are organized in very different ways. This affects the cell design. The nucleated cells have the capacity to take up specialized functions and participate in making a multicellular organism. Hence, this is a basic characteristic of classification. On the basis of the number of cells present, organisms are classified into unicellular and multicellular organisms. In unicellular organisms, a single cell performs the life processes, whereas in multicellular organisms, groups of cells will carry out specialized functions. It follows the principle of division of labor. In such a body design, all cells would not be identical. This makes a very basic distinction in the body design of organisms. Thus, we can distinguish an amoeba and a worm on the basis of their body design. Organisms are also classified on the basis of their mode of nutrition. Those which can produce their own food and those that get food from outside differ in their body design. Plants that perform photosynthesis can further be classified on the basis of the level of organization of their body. Similarly, animals can also be classified on the basis of the level of organization of their body and the presence of specialized organs found for different functions. The characteristics used for classification of plants will be very different from those for classifying animals. This is because they differ in their basic body design, mode of nutrition, etc. Hence, these characteristics, for example, having a skeleton, are used to make subgroups rather than making broad groups. Let's do a quick check. The hierarchy of classification. Groups.
Many scientists have tried to give the outline of classification. Ideas or hierarchy of classification given by some scientists. Carolus Linnaeus, he recognized only two groups of organisms, plants and animals. The difference between plants and animals can be clearly seen. The plants are stationary. They synthesize their own food with the help of radiant energy of the sun. Thus, they possess autotrophic mode of nutrition. The plant cells possess cell wall around them and they possess chlorophyll. Some plants exhibit unlimited or indefinite growth, whereas animals are generally motile or moving, and they obtain food by eating other plants or animals. The animal cells lack cell wall around them and do not possess chlorophyll. The growth of the animal body stops after attaining definite size. On the basis of these basic differences, Linnaeus classified all the living organisms into two groups such as kingdom Plantae and kingdom Animalia. In this way, he proposed two-kingdom system of classification. Ernst Haeckel, 1894. During taxonomical studies, he indicated that certain organisms do not fit either under plant kingdom or animal kingdom. At that time, Ernst Haeckel raised a third kingdom Protista for unicellular organisms. Robert Whittaker,
1959.
Robert Whittaker added fourth kingdom Monera for bacteria, which are
Prokaryotic,
and fifth kingdom fungi. Fungi are eukaryotic organisms and lack chlorophyll. Carl Hoos, 1977. He classified kingdom Monera into Archaebacteria and Eubacteria.
This classification of living organisms is based on structure of cells, whether they are prokaryotic or eukaryotic, which is step 1. Structure of organisms, whether they are made up of a single cell or many cells, that is unicellular or multicellular, which is second step. Presence or absence of cell wall. It is considered to separate plants and animals, which is the third step. Mode of nutrition. On this basis, the green plants are separated based on photosynthesis, fungi on the basis of absorption, and animals on the basis of ingestion. This is the fourth step. At a glance, we can see that kingdom Monera is separated at first step, kingdom Protista at second step, and kingdom Animalia at a third step. Kingdom Fungi and kingdom Plantae are separated at the fourth step. This 5-kingdom classification is given by scientist R. H. Whittaker in 1959. The kingdoms are further classified into subgroups at various levels. If we consider hierarchy starting from kingdom, we have phylum for animals and division for plants as a highest level. Phylum or division can be considered as a subkingdom. It is further divided into classes. Classes are further divided into orders. Orders are further divided into families. Families are further divided into genus. The genus has different species. Thus, starting from kingdom, where there are many differences amongst the life forms and similarity is less, if we move towards species, we observe that gradually the difference will go on reducing, and we will find that there is a remarkable increase in the similarity level. By separating organisms into smaller and smaller groups on the basis of hierarchy of characteristics, we reach at species level. Species is a basic unit of classification. It includes all organisms which are similar enough to breed and perpetuate. The reproduction is important for perpetuation of species. The interbreeding is possible at the species level. Whittaker's 5-kingdom classification. Kingdom Monera. The bacteria are unicellular organisms, that is, they have a single cell structure. They are rod-shaped, that is, bacilli-forms, and some of them are circular in shape, that is, coccus form. The rod-shaped forms which are prominent are the lactobacilli. They are responsible for turning milk into curds. They are the representative form of the kingdom Monera. Some of the characteristic features of this kingdom are: they are unicellular organisms, example, bacillus, coccus, coliform. Mode of nutrition is either autotrophic or heterotrophic. Example, photosynthetic bacteria, chemosynthetic bacteria, parasitic, saprophytic, and nitrogen-fixing bacteria. Cell structure is prokaryotic. It is without well-organized nucleus and cell organelles. Example, bacterial cell. This kingdom includes bacteria, blue-green algae or cyanobacteria, and mycoplasma. Kingdom Protista. The characteristic features of this kingdom are: they are single-celled organisms. Well-defined nucleus is present enclosed in a nuclear membrane. Mode of nutrition is autotrophic for algal forms. Example, Euglena, Volvox, and heterotrophic for protozoans. Example, amoeba, paramecium, etc. 4. Some organisms, example, paramecium, have hair-like cilia, while some, example, Euglena and Volvox, have whip-like flagella for locomotion. Amoeba shows locomotion with pseudopodia. Kingdom Fungi. The characteristic features of this kingdom are: they are non-green, eukaryotic organisms. The mode of nutrition is heterotrophic. Most of the forms utilize dead and decaying organic matter as a source of their food, hence they are called saprophytic organisms. Many of them are multicellular with some unicellular forms like yeast. Cell wall is made up of chitin, which is tough and complex sugar. Thallus is made of thread-like hyphae rather than cells. Many nuclei are seen in the cytoplasm. The common examples are yeasts, which are unicellular forms, molds, which have mycelial structures, and mushrooms, which have cellular structure and fruiting bodies. The Aspergillus, Penicillium, and Mucor are common molds. Kingdom Plantae. The characteristic features of this kingdom includes multicellular organisms having a cell wall made up of cellulose. Mode of nutrition is autotrophic. They are the main source of food for the other living organisms. They are stationary, that is, attached to the substratum. Kingdom Animalia. The characteristic features of this kingdom are: they are multicellular organisms. The outer covering of cell is a cell membrane. Mode of nutrition is heterotrophic. They are motile. Kingdom Plantae. When we consider the basis of classification for plants at the primitive level, we consider morphology and later on the anatomy. The classification of plants begins with morphology. The external characters which you can clearly observe are type of leaves, type of root system, etc. At the next level, we consider presence or absence of vascular tissue. They are food and water conducting tissues. At the top level, various details are observed like the reproductive parts, flowers and fruits for classification. On the basis of the absence or presence of flowers, fruits and seeds, plants are segregated in two subkingdoms, cryptogams and phanerogams. The non-flowering plants, that is cryptogams, are divided on the basis of differentiation of their plant body. They are divided into Thallophyta, Bryophyta and Pteridophyta. Further division of phanerogams is on the basis of seeds. If the seeds are enclosed in a fruit, then they are kept under Angiosperms. Plants with naked seeds are Gymnosperms. Further division of Angiosperms is on the basis of the number of cotyledons present in the seed. We can distinguish monocots with single cotyledon and dicots with two cotyledons. Thallophyta. The characteristic features of division Thallophyta. They are simple and soft. Usually, it is thread-like plant body without organ system. These plants occur mostly in aquatic habitat. They have autotrophic mode of nutrition. They can prepare their own food material. All kinds of algae belong to this group. The common forms are Eulothrix, Chara, Spirogyra, Ulva, etc. Bryophyta. The characteristic features of division Bryophyta. These are primitive multicellular plants. They are shade-loving and amphibious plants. That is, presence of water is necessary for completion of their life cycle. Mode of nutrition is autotrophic. They have thin, soft, plate-like green plant body or thallus without true stem, leaves or roots. They are without vascular system. Root-like structures called rhizoids are present for absorption and anchorage. The common forms are mosses like Funaria and Anthoceros and liverworts like Markensia and Rixia. Pteridophyta. Division Pteridophyta include ferns and horsetails. The characteristic features of division Pteridophyta. The plants are multicellular. The mode of nutrition is autotrophic. The plant body is differentiated into root, stem and leaves. The plants bear small leaflets. These plants have simple vascular tissue. A central water-conducting xylem tissue is surrounded by food-conducting phloem tissue. They reproduce asexually by spores and sexually by formation of gametes. The common forms are Adiantum, Lycopodium, Marsilia, Selaginella and Pteridium. Gymnosperms. The meaning of this term is naked or open seeds. The word gymnos means naked and sperma means seeds. The characteristic features of gymnosperms. The plants are evergreen and perennial. They have single main stem which may show dwarf shoots with scaly leaves. The leaves are triangular, needle-shaped and are arranged spirally. These plants bear separate male and female flowers in a structure called cones. They do not form fruits. Their seeds are open, that is, naked. The common forms are Cycas, Pinus or pines, and Cedrus deodar. Angiosperms. The meaning of this term is covered seeds. The word angio means a case or covering and sperma means seed. The characteristic features of angiosperms. These plants bear flowers as a reproductive organ. Seeds develops inside the fruit. The seed may possess a single cotyledon, that is, monocotyledonous seed, or it may have two cotyledons, that is, dicotyledonous seed. In between the cotyledons lies the embryo or the baby plant. The cotyledons protect the baby plant. They supply the nutrients or the endosperm to the baby plant. The cotyledons are called seed leaves because in many instances they emerge and become green when the seed germinates. Cotyledons represent a bit of pre-designed plant in the seed.
On the basis of cotyledons present in the seeds, angiosperms are further classified into two classes.
Monocotyledonous plants and dicotyledonous plants differ from each other in certain respects. In monocotyledonous plants, the seeds show a single cotyledon. The root system is of fibrous type. The stem is comparatively weak and modified. For example, it is hollow in bamboo, disc-like in onion and garlic, and pseudostem in banana. The leaves show parallel venation. They are radical, that is, directly arising from stem, and are without petiole, that is, sessile. The flowers show trimerous symmetry. In dicotyledonous plants, the seeds show two cotyledons. The root system is of taproot type with prominent primary root. The leaves show reticulate venation. The leaves are petiolate with prominent dorsal and ventral side. The flowers are pentamerous. Orchid like Paphiopedilum is a monocot, while Ipomea, morning glory, is a dicot. Activity. Let us perform an activity to differentiate between monocotyledonous seeds and dicotyledonous seeds. Soak few seeds of pea, bean, green gram, mango, tamarind, wheat, maize and jowar for 8 to 10 hours. The seeds absorb water when they are soaked in it. The outer covering of the seed is thus easily separated. After removing the seed coat, we can break the seed into two equal halves. Seeds that break into two equal halves are dicotyledonous seeds, whereas the seeds that do not break into two equal halves are the monocotyledonous seeds. Seeds of pea, bean, green gram, mango and tamarind are dicotyledonous seeds. Seeds of wheat, maize and jowar are monocotyledonous seeds. Kingdom Animalia. Like plants, we observe enormous diversity in animals also. We arrange them in a proper sequence. This helps us in their systematic study in an easy manner. While classifying animals, we consider their structural organization or body design, body symmetry, presence or absence of notochord, and coelom, that is, body cavity, and their organs of locomotion. Based on their body design, there are two sub-kingdoms. 1. Protozoa. They are microscopic, and Metazoa. They are megascopic. Based on the body symmetry, Metazoa are of two types: asymmetrical or irregular shapes and symmetrical or regular shapes. The symmetrical forms may have either bilateral symmetry as observed in frog, rat, or radial symmetry as observed in hydra, starfish. The spherical symmetry is also observed in some animals like sea urchins. based on presence or absence of notochord. The animals having notochord develop an internal skeleton as in case of vertebrates. The animals without notochord have no skeleton as in case of invertebrates. When we consider these morphological characters, the subkingdom Metazoa, which includes megascopic animals, is further classified into 10 phyla. 1. Phylum Porifera, with typical examples of all sponges like Spongilla, Cycon. 2. Phylum Coelenterata, with typical examples of Hydra, sea anemone, Physalia. 3. Phylum Platyhelminthes, with typical examples of tapeworm, Planaria, liver fluke. 4. Phylum Nematoda, with typical examples of Ascaris, Bucheria. 5. Phylum Annelida, with typical examples of earthworm, leech, Nereis. 6. Phylum Arthropoda, with typical examples of insects like bees and flies, prawn, scorpion, etc. 7. Phylum Mollusca, with typical examples of pila, bivalve and octopus. 8. Phylum Echinodermata, with typical examples of asteria, that is, starfish, and sea urchin. 9. Phylum Protochordata, with typical examples of Balanoglossus and Amphioxus. 10. Phylum Vertebrata, examples of Pisces, amphibians, reptiles, aves and mammals. Porifera. Porifera means the organisms with holes. The characteristic features of this phylum are: they are mostly found in marine habitats. They are non-motile animals attached to a solid substratum. Their body is asymmetrical. The entire body is perforated with small pores called ostia. The large opening at the upper free end is known as osculum. The body is covered with spicules. The common forms are Cycon, that is finger sponge, Euspongia, that is bath sponge, Euplectella, glass sponge, and Spongilla, freshwater sponge. Coelenterata. The characteristic features of this phylum are: the animals are aquatic and mostly occur in marine habitats. The simple body structure shows differentiation. It consists of 2 layers of cells, outer and inner, that is, diploblastic, radial symmetry. They possess a body cavity or coelenteron. There is a single opening at hypostome, which is surrounded by a sensory tentacle. These animals reproduce asexually by budding. Some of the animals belonging to Coelenterata exist in colonial forms and others are solitary. The common forms are corals and sea anemones, which are colonial. Hydra and jellyfish are the solitary animals. Platyhelminthes. The characteristic features of this phylum are: the animals have flat, ribbon-like body, having 3 layers of cell from which differentiated tissues can be made, so they are known as triploblastic. The animals are bilaterally symmetrical. They are either free-living or are parasitic by nature. The parasitic forms have hooks for attachment to host. They have sucker for absorption of nutrients from host. The common forms are tapeworm, planaria, and liver fluke.
Nematoda.
The characteristic features of this phylum are: the animals have cylindrical body having 3 layers of cells, triploblastic. The tissue-level organization is present, but no real organs are found. The animals are bilaterally symmetrical. The animals possess a primitive body cavity, which is known as pseudocoelom. They have a straight digestive tract, which begins with mouth and ends with anus. Most of the animals are parasitic. The sexes are separate. Most of these worms are pathogenic and they cause disease in human beings. The common forms are Ascaris or roundworm. It is a parasite of the stomach or intestine. It causes a disease, ascariasis, commonly known as worming trouble. Pinworm is a parasite of the stomach or intestine and it causes vomiting. Filarial worm is a parasite of the skin and it causes filaria or elephantiasis. Hookworm is a parasite of the stomach and it causes stomachache and itching sensation near anus.
Annelida.
The characteristic features of phylum Annelida are: the animals are cylindrical, segmented, having 3 layers of cells, that is, triploblastic. The worms are burrowing, few are parasites, and have bilateral symmetry. They have true coelom or body cavity with simple organ system. Animals reproduce sexually, but sexes are not separate. Both the type of sex organs are situated in the same animal. They are hermaphrodite. Locomotion occurs by setae. They are found in marine water, fresh water, or on land. The common forms are earthworm, which is found on soil. Few of them are parasitic in nature. Leech is an ectoparasite, and Nereis. Arthropoda. These are the animals with jointed legs. Arthos means jointed and podas means feet. The characteristic features of this phylum are: this is the largest group of animals. The animals are cosmopolitan, that is, they occur in all different habitats. The animals are triploblastic and bilaterally symmetrical. The animals have jointed appendages for locomotion.
The body is externally segmented and protected with chitinous exoskeleton. Body segments divide body into head, thorax, and abdomen.
The insects have 2 pairs of wings to fly and 3 pairs of jointed appendages. The sexes are separate
and they reproduce by sexual means. The common forms are prawns, crabs, spiders, bees, flies, mosquitoes, scorpion, centipedes, and beetles.
Mollusca.
These are soft-bodied animals. The word molluscus means soft. The characteristic features of phylum Mollusca are: these animals are mostly aquatic with unsegmented soft body covered by a shell. The animals are triproblastic and bilaterally symmetrical. The body of phyla is asymmetric. The body is distinguished in 3 parts, with anterior head having sense organs, dorsal visceral mass with organ system, and ventral foot for locomotion. The common forms are snails, octopus, and mussel like unio and phyla.
Echinodermata.
These are the animals with spiny outer covering. In Greek language, the word echinos means spiny and derma means skin. The characteristic features of phylum Echinodermata are: the animals are mostly marine. They are unisexual, means sexes are separate. They are triproblastic, having a tough spiny exoskeleton made up of calcium carbonate. Their body is unsegmented, hard, with radial symmetry. They have coelomic cavity. They derive their food from water vascular system. The animals have tube feet for locomotion. It is a peculiar water-driven tube system that they use for moving around. They have a regeneration capacity. The damaged body part can be regenerated. The common forms are starfish, Ophiothrix, brittle star, sea cucumber, echinus, sea urchin, Antidon.
Protochordata.
The characteristic features of this phylum are: these are mostly marine or burrowing worm-like animals with soft, unsegmented body. They are triproblastic, with body having bilateral symmetry. The body shows 3 distinct parts: proboscis, collar, and trunk. The reproduction is by sexual means. They possess gill slits for respiration. The animals possess notochord, at least at some stages during their lives. Notochord is a long, rod-like support structure that runs along the back of the animal, separating the nervous tissue from the other. It provides place for the muscles to attach for ease of movements. The common forms are Herdmania amphiaxis and Balanoglossus. Balanoglossus has notochord in the proboscis region.
Vertebrata.
Based on the vertebral column, we classify animals as vertebrates and invertebrates. The vertebral column gives support. It gives protection to the nerve cord which passes through it. vertebral column provides place for the muscles to attach for ease of movements. Non-chordates are the animals without a notochord, a dorsal supporting rod, whereas chordates have a notochord at some stage in their life. In Vertebrata, notochord is replaced by a vertebral column. The characteristic features of this phylum are presence of notochord that develops into skull and a true vertebral column. It is present on dorsal side of body. An internal skeleton is observed in these animals. Presence of dorsal nerve cord that develops into nervous system. The animals have paired gill clefts or well-developed lungs for respiration. The body is divided into head, thorax, abdomen, and tail. The blood vascular system is of closed type. The color of the blood is red. The heart is situated on the ventral side of the body.
Vertebrates are further classified into 5 groups, namely Pisces, Amphibia, Reptilia, Aves, and Mammalia. Pisces.
The characteristic features of this class are: they are exclusively aquatic and well adapted to aquatic mode of life. They have a streamlined body for purpose of swimming in water. The body is covered with scales, which gives rough appearance to skin. They possess covered or uncovered gill slits for respiration. The gill slits are covered by operculum. They have paired fins to swim in water. Caudal fin, tail fin, helps to change the direction while swimming. The heart is 2-chambered. They are cold-blooded animals. Body temperature varies as the temperature of the surrounding environment. They lay large number of eggs. Fertilization is external. The endoskeleton is made up of cartilage in case of shark, which is a cartilaginous fish. In rohu and tuna fish, the endoskeleton is made up of both bones and cartilage. These are bony fishes. The common examples of this class are electric ray, stingray, and dogfish.
Amphibia.
The characteristic features of this class are: they are the animals which can live in water as well on land. They have no scales, but the skin has mucus glands which keep the skin moist and slimy. The skin is kept moist for respiration. The animals have short forelimbs and long hind limbs with 5 webbed fingers. The exceptional form is Ichthyophis, which is limbless. The heart is 3-chambered and mixed blood circulates in the body. The animals are unisexual, oviparous, and fertilization is external. They respire through gills in larval stage and adopt pulmonary or cutaneous respiration during dormant period. Amphibians remain dormant in summer, estivation, and in winter, hibernation.
Reptilia.
The characteristic features of class Reptilia are: these are cold-blooded, mostly terrestrial animals. They show crawling or creeping movements as they have weak short limbs or they are without limbs. The skin is dry, rough and scaly. The body is divisible into head, neck, abdomen and tail. They are unisexual, oviparous, having internal fertilization. They respire only with lungs. Most of these animals have three-chambered heart. The crocodiles are exceptional, having four-chambered heart. The common forms are turtles, chameleon, wall lizard, garden lizard, flying lizard, draco, and crocodiles, gavialis and crocodilus. Limbless reptiles are snakes like king cobra, water snakes, daman, python, etc.
Aves.
The characteristic features of this class are: these are warm-blooded, unisexual, oviparous animals which hatch the eggs. They are completely adapted to aerial mode of life. The forelimbs are modified into wings. The body is covered with feathers as exoskeleton. The body is streamlined, spindle-shaped, and light due to hollow bones. Such a structure lowers the air resistance during flight. They breathe through lungs. The heart is four-chambered. The external part of mouth is developed into a beak. The different types of birds are such as parakeets, parrot, kite, owl.
White stork, tufted duck, ostrich, pigeon, sparrow, and crow. Mammalia.
The characteristic features of this class are: these are most evolved, warm-blooded animals. Mostly they are terrestrial. They have mammary glands to produce milk to nourish their young ones. The skin is covered with hair. Skin has sweat and oil glands. Animals are unisexual and viviparous. They give birth to their young ones. Only platypus and echina lay eggs.
Animals like kangaroos give birth to poorly developed young ones.
They breathe through lungs. The muscular diaphragm is present between the thoracic and abdominal cavities. Heart is four-chambered. They have movable jaws with teeth. Eyes have movable eyelids. Ears have movable pinna. They produce sound with active vocal cords. The common examples of this class are dog, cow, bat, lion, monkey, elephant, cat, whale, and human beings.
Nomenclature.
The nomenclature of organisms is required for their separate identification from each other. The local name of an organism is enough for any one region or for the people of that region, but this name is not useful for the other region of the world. So, it is necessary to have a scientific name of the organism, which is universally accepted. The scientific method of naming an organism is called nomenclature.
In living organisms, a scientific naming process is followed to maintain individual identity. Each and every living organism is given a unique name. Scientists have unanimously accepted binomial nomenclature system. This nomenclature system was suggested by Swedish botanist Carl Linnaeus.
Carlus Linnaeus, 1707 to 1778, was a doctor by profession but was interested in the study of plants. On the basis of his observations, he published his first paper on plants at the age of 22. He continued his studies on the diversity of plants while serving as a personal physician of a wealthy government official. He published 14 papers, and his findings were compiled in the book Systema Naturae. This book formed the basis for all taxonomical researches. His system of classification was a simple scheme for arranging plants so as to be able to identify them again.
According to this system, every individual is given a scientific name for individual identity. The scientific name includes two terms. The first term is a name of the genus, and second term is the name of a species. The name is according to the specifications of Common International Code for its individual identity. Lion has a scientific name, Panthera leo, where Panthera is a genus name and Leo is a species. Similarly, tiger has a scientific name, Panthera tigris, and leopard has Panthera pardus. From these scientific names, it is evident that the name of the genus is common, but the name of species differs in each of them.
The scientific names of some of the common plants are Mangifera indica for mango, Rosa gallica for pink rose, and Ocimum sanctum for tulsi.
These names are guided by a set of rules stated in the International Code of Nomenclature, like scientific names should be written in italics if printed and underlined if handwritten. Generic names should begin with a capital letter, but species name should be written in small letter.